We now speak about potential trade and investment opportunities from President Marcos U.S. visit with the former chairman of the American Apparel and Footwear Association, Rick Helfenbein, joining us now from New York. Rick, great to see you. How significant is this trip of the Philippine president in the U.S. in securing greater economic engagement?
I honestly think, Rico, first of all, thank you for having me on. And I have to tell you, I honestly think this trip of President Marcos is a big win for the Philippines. Matter of fact, I think it is a huge win. Those of us who deal in the world of international trade look for clues in the readout of all the official meetings, and there are three. I reiterate, there were three major clues to come out of these meetings. The first clue, and this doesn't happen very often, President Biden has announced a presidential trade and investment mission to the Philippines. That is huge, and that I expect will happen fairly soon. The second thing was an announcement of a 2024 Indo-Pacific Business Forum to be held in Manila, making Manila the capital of the supply chain in the Indo-Pacific, depending on how you look at it. And the third, which is really key to understanding how international trade works and the basis for what everyone hopes eventually becomes free trade agreements, is the fact that they announced that there will be a labor working group established within TIFA. And that is critical to laying the groundwork for any potential free trade agreement. So I think this is a big win. It's a fabulous first step. Everyone is hopeful, you know, that for those of us who have dealt in the Philippines for years, we're hopeful for a better trade agreement, for the renewal of GSP. These are all things that are key to the success.
I mean, this may be so far a successful visit of President Marcos to the United States. But when you take a look at the numbers between the United States and the Philippines, there's this huge trade imbalance between the two countries. More American products enter the Philippines rather than the other way around. Do you think that these initiatives, the Presidential Trade Mission, the Business Forum in 2024, and the Labor Working Group will eventually narrow this trade balance, this trade deficit between the two countries, and we see Philippine products, more Philippine products being exported to America?
That is the hope. You know, in general terms, the deficit with the Philippines, although there is a deficit, statistically in the world of United States overall trade deficits, we consider it almost fairly balanced. So it's always relative. It depends how you look at it. The history is that, you know, the Philippines' #1 trading partner is China. In the United States, the #1 trading partner is Mexico. #2 is Canada. #3 is China. How does Philippines rank in that? Philippines is number 31. So the idea is, how do we get more product out of the Philippines into the United States? And I was in Washington last week. I was talking to a lot of very influential people. And the word we hear on Capitol Hill is, you know, how about some further decoupling of the trade from China? And that's all well and good, but where do you go with the product? And frankly, honestly, Philippines is the best choice. If there is to be an alternative to China sourcing, not just for apparel, footwear, accessories, but for all products, Philippines is a logical choice.
All right. What is the perception right now, Rick, of American investors with this President Marcos administration? Everybody knows he is associated with his father, who used to be a dictator way back in the 60s, all the way up until the mid-80s. What is the perception? What do Americans think about the Philippine president?
The Philippine president is youthful. He is energetic. 80% of the Philippine population turned out to vote. He won by a landslide. And the image that he's projecting in America is very, very favorable. When he was here in September, he met with a lot of business leaders in New York. I was fortunate enough to be in that group. He impressed all of us, and he gets it. He understands the importance of economic development. And also on Capitol Hill, I believe he is viewed very favorably. The era of his father was a long time ago. This is a whole new generation. And, everyone looks at President Marcos and say, okay, he's an aggressive guy, a young guy, let's go forward.
When he was in the United States for the UN General Assembly last year, there were quite a number of American companies who said that they wanted to invest and made pledges. And now there are, once again, American investors interested to invest in the country. But, Rick, these are just pledges. When are we likely to see American investors really putting more hard cash into the Philippines, into the country, and creating more jobs for the labor market?
Well, I think, if we are sector specific, the American government used to give what was called quota, or right to ship to the United States. And during the period between 2005 and 2008, when China ascended to the WTO, the Philippines lost almost 500,000 jobs, particularly in the assembly sectors. The idea is, how do you get that back? And I think you get that back through coupling potential of a free trade agreement or sectoral agreements, and you make steps. First steps are always baby steps. And the idea that President Biden has said, let's send a presidential trade and investment mission to the Philippines is an indication that we're going to move forward. And I don't think there's trepidation on the part of American companies. They're under a lot of pressure with this decoupling. When you're a public company in the United States and you go in front of your investors, one of the first questions that is asked is, what is your reliance on China? And you need to have a really good answer for that. You need to diversify your supply chains. And I think you're going to be seeing that very soon.
Rick, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your insights. Rick Helfenbein, the former chairman of the American Apparel and Footwear Association, joining us from New York.